Welcome to the Helix Step-by-Step Deposit Guide. Helix is the institutional research data repository for Imperial College London, which aims to collect, preserve, and provide access to research data generated by research staff and students affiliated with the university. This video walkthrough is designed to give Imperial research staff and students an overview of Helix and show the steps involved in making a successful data deposit. To ensure that research data are successfully approved for deposit in Helix, those depositing data should first take the time to review the following. Check that files are logically organised. Use clear, consistent naming conventions and folder structures. Ensure the proper rights have been procured to share all included materials. Anonymise personal data. Ensure no identifiable information is included unless explicitly permitted. Check that files and overall dataset size do not exceed the repository's limits. The repository currently supports a maximum of 3.5 GB per individual file, 10 GB per dataset, and up to 100 files per submission. Use file formats that support long-term accessibility and reuse. While all file formats are accepted, using open or widely supported file formats are recommended wherever possible. Once confident that the data are ready for deposit, simply proceed to the Helix repository website and select Login from the navigation bar to get started. From here, login is enabled via Imperial Single Sign-On. Please note, permission to deposit is restricted to academic staff and postgraduate researchers. Further details on the eligibility requirements for depositing in the repository are outlined in the Helix Submissions Policy. For all access-related queries and issues, please contact rdm-enquiries at imperial.ac.uk. Depositors can now begin the process of submitting their data. First, select the plus icon on the navigation bar and select New Upload from the drop-down menu. From the next screen, data files can be uploaded by selecting Upload Files or by using the drag and drop feature. Please be aware that at this stage, files should be final versions ready for publication. Once published, files cannot be modified. Any changes will result in a new version being created. Additional supporting documentation that could help others understand and reuse the data should also be considered for upload. This may include a README text file, a data dictionary, a methods or protocols description, codebooks, or data processing scripts. If the research involved human participants, it's also recommended to include a copy of the blank consent form and participant information sheet used in the study. Complete this section by selecting Get a DOI Now to reserve a DOI for the submission. The DOI will not go live until the dataset is published. Alternatively, if the dataset has been published elsewhere and already has a DOI or other persistent identifier, for example, an accession number, a record for the dataset can be created in symplectic instead. This section now looks at describing the dataset and adding discovery metadata. First, provide a meaningful title for the dataset. We recommend the format dataset4 followed by the title of the article or the output. Then, list the persons responsible for creating the dataset. Provide a concise description of the dataset, including details such as a list of the files included, how and why the files were created, any software required to access them, and any additional contextual information that would help others understand and reuse the data. If the dataset requires more detailed documentation, such as definitions of column headings and row labels in tabular data, we recommend uploading a README text file or other relevant supporting documentation alongside the data files. Next, choose a license from the drop-down menu. We recommend either CC0 or CC BY for data. For more guidance, visit our webpage on choosing a license. Add the names of any individuals significantly involved in collecting, managing, or otherwise contributing to the development of the dataset. Add any keywords or phrases describing the dataset. Include the language used. More than one language may be selected. Add the date when the dataset will be made publicly available. If the dataset is embargoed, use the date when the embargo ends. Additional dates can be added if applicable. For example, the time period during which the data was created or collected. Include a version number if applicable. For example, if an earlier version has already been published. Select Add Award to choose a funding source from the provided list. Or select Add Custom if the award is not listed and enter the details in the space provided. Add any alternate identifiers applicable to the dataset. The alternate identifier should be an additional identifier for the same instance of the resource. Enter the name and unique identifiers for any related works, for example, publications, preprints, related datasets, or project websites. Finally, provide a valid and monitored contact email address with the dataset submission. Acceptable email addresses include a current institutional email or a shared or group email affiliated with the relevant research group or department. For PhD students submitting data as part of their thesis at the end of their studies, a personal email address may be used only if the institutional email will soon become inactive. In this case, it is important to ensure that the address is one that will be continually monitored. Where relevant to the study, include your DART ID reference as part of your submission. For further guidance, refer to the university's governance web pages, linked below. This section explains the access and visibility settings for your dataset. Depositors have two options: public visibility and embargo. If the data can be made publicly available immediately, set the access level to public. Both the files and the metadata will become publicly accessible as soon as the submission is approved for publication. If there is a valid reason to delay publication, for example, awaiting a related article's publication or a pending patent, a temporary embargo may be applied. To do this, depositors should select the restricted visibility settings. Then, enter the date the embargo should end in the Embargo Until field using the ISO format year, month, date. The Embargo Reason field may also be used to briefly explain why the embargo is being applied, although this is optional. Please note that while a submission is under embargo, file access is temporarily restricted. The files cannot be downloaded, but the metadata record remains visible. Once the embargo date expires, the data files will be made publicly available. Helix cannot currently accept datasets requiring indefinite restricted access due to sensitive or confidential data. Depositors should only select restricted visibility if they intend to apply an embargo and the files can be shared publicly once the embargo period has ended. Select Save Draft to save the submission record as a draft. Ensure that a preview of the record is undertaken before files are submitted for publication. This will allow for any final checks of the dataset and record prior to its published release, as depositors will not be able to edit or remove data files beyond this stage. Should a file require removal, for example, because it contains errors or was published by mistake, depositors should contact rdm-enquiries at imperial.ac.uk. Once satisfied that the files and record are ready for publication, select Submit for review. Finally, check the box to confirm agreement with the terms outlined in the Data Deposit Agreement. Once the dataset is submitted, repository staff will review the submission. Repository staff will conduct checks to confirm that metadata is complete, accurate, and aligned with repository policies. Depositors will be contacted if clarification or additional information is necessary to support the curation or publication process. The DOI will remain private until the dataset goes live.